address the committee? Anybody? Excellent. Moving on to our bright lights. Today, we will be receiving bright lights from the Hawthorne Lab Carroll University Partnership. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please come forward. Fantastic. Oh, Joe's going to introduce some.
Well, Carly will be able to introduce her team with her this evening.
Hi.
Hi.
Hold on, let me get on the.
This is working all right.
Yeah. We are here from Hawthorne Lab School. I'm Carly Solberg, and I am the principal at Hawthorne. And today we'd like to give you an update on the lab partnership and talk to you about how this partnership has impacted all sorts of different people that are a part of Hawthorne Lab School and a part of our school district in Waukesha. This slide just shows an overview of the Carroll students that we come into contact with in one school year. So the yellow stars represent all of the Carroll students who are embedded in our school this fall semester, and then the blue stars represent the Carroll students who are embedded in our school in the spring. And the Carroll students are here for a variety of different reasons. The ones clustered on the left-hand side of the screen are currently enrolled in literacy methods courses. The blue stars up to the upper right are enrolled in a homeschool community connections methods course in the spring. The rest of the ones that are kind of scattered around our building map are students who are either in a field placement, and those are both undergraduate and graduate students. And then we have student teachers, and we also have students who are resident students. And we have one of those students here today, and she's going to talk a little bit more about what that means to be a resident student. So that's 72 Carroll students throughout the course of just this school year that are embedded in learning with our professionals at Hawthorne. The number 10 represents the number of Hawthorne staff members that are currently enrolled in graduate programs at Carroll. So they are enrolled in either the reading teacher licensure program, the reading specialist licensure program, the educational leadership program, the math certificate program, or the personalized learning certificate program. So 10 of our teachers are currently pursuing higher education through Carroll and our partnership.
I'm Carrie Kretschmar. I'm a professor at Carroll University. So I want to talk a little bit more about specifically those courses that we do on site. They really allow for that theory to practice connection, both for our students, but then also to connect that back to theory for teachers. And so in literacy methods, students are learning about different instructional strategies and read alouds, and then they're going into classrooms and getting a chance to do that and then debrief again with faculty while also talking with Hawthorne staff. I teach the homeschool community connections class where students were paired with recess buddies. That class is really focused on understanding how to build relationships and community and family, and so they really got to know students over the course of the semester out on the playground. And then we also have opportunities to bring lab staff in to talk and meet with us and learn together. So everyone from 4K teacher who became kind of a star of our class, #Deb, we said, because her words were so powerful for us, to the social worker, to Playworks people, to come in and learn together. And we really think that these on-site courses allow for rich learning and support an environment of curiosity and innovation among our pre-service teachers and practicing teachers, and benefit students by having more one-on-one work with pre-service teachers and practicing teachers.
I'm Kristen Kohlberger. I'm a first and second grade teacher at Hawthorne, and I've had the opportunity to have the literacy methods students in my classroom the past 2 falls. And the benefit I see of that is not only do the Carroll students have an open line of communication with us and get to ask us questions, but as teachers, we have the opportunity to really think about our why, and when we answer those questions, to justify the reasons why we are doing what we're doing in the classroom. So that's one of the benefits. And also another thing is that we have Emily here, and she has been in our classroom for a year and a half, and having that consistent face and that collaboration has really impacted her teaching, my teaching, and the kids in the classroom.
Yeah, so my name is Emily Hansen, and I am a resident and now student teacher in the 1st and 2nd grade room at Hawthorne. And through this collaboration with Hawthorne and Carol, this past year and a half, I've been able to use my time at Hawthorne as an extension of my own practice with the students, and also an extension of my learning of School District of Waukesha practices. My role transitioned from being one of conferring and observation to eventually pulling small groups and leading mini lessons, and eventually phasing into a full classroom management role. And throughout the past year and a half, I've had a staff of like-minded people that I can collaborate with. And the following is a quote from a teacher taken from a survey on this Hawthorne and Carroll relationship. So the partnership between our school and Carroll is powerful. The relationships built between Carroll students and our students, and the learning experiences and time we have had to really dig into our own beliefs and teaching practices is important to our work.
Hi, I'm Jess Shaw, and I'm currently a student. I have been in both courses that work with Hawthorne, and one specific thing I like about the Recess Buddy program is that you really get to focus on the relationship part of teaching, zero in on that rather than focusing on everything else that comes with teaching. And I actually ran into my buddy this year at Walmart when I was grocery shopping, and he came up to me and he talked about how he's transitioned into middle school, and it was really rewarding for him to come up to me and have a conversation and let me know that that relationship still meant something to him.
Hi, I'm Carly Miller. I'm also a Carroll student. I'm currently enrolled in the Literacy Methods program at Hawthorne, and being able to apply what we've learned in the classroom at Carroll to working with students is super beneficial for us. Being able to do those conferring notes, to practice seeing the strengths of the students and looking at what the next steps will be, and being able to do a read aloud with them and practice those running records are really beneficial and give us a taste of what it will be like as we become a teacher.
So I think just listening to them speaks to the impact that we'll have on our school district. I know I cannot wait as a principal to connect with these people as they graduate and bring them on as a part of our school district, knowing that they've had experience in a diverse setting throughout multiple semesters, knowing that they've been trained and had experience around the implementation of our instructional methods that we use here. So I am so excited to see them, hopefully in the future, become a part of our school district.
We actually have, currently in our classroom, our special ed teacher was a Carroll resident student, and she graduated last spring, and she got hired on to our team. And so she's been at Hawthorne for a lot of semesters and now is at Hawthorne as a full-time teacher.
Which has made for a fantastic transition. She's definitely come with a readiness.
Hi, my name is Elias, and I'm a first grader. We become friends because the same Carroll students come with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We read to each other, and it's really fun. They ask me questions about the book, and they teach us strategies on how to get better at reading.
Hi, my name is Avion, and I'm a 5th grader. I had a recess buddy who was a Carroll College student. Her name is Monica. She played with me during the activities. She encouraged me to win games. The Carroll College students are funny and kind. They teach us good sportsmanship.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm in 5th grade. I like having a Carol's recess buddy because she played kickball with me and at recess. She spent time getting to know me. I got to know her too. We were funny together. The best part is that she could make me feel good when I was mad. Thanks for listening. Go Pioneers and go Hawks.
Very good. Does anybody, yes, Mr. Baumgart?
Yes, I had the pleasure about a month ago of going over there unannounced, so I could just go over there and find out if this was real. And it's really real. quite simply, and the staff back there knows, and the Carroll students know. I wanted to get a feel for the benefits that the Carroll students are getting, but I also wanted to get a feel for whether our students are getting benefits out of it. And it's a slam dunk both ways. You heard about a lot of things that Carroll kids are getting out of it. Excuse me. And their more familiarity with actually working in a classroom as opposed to attending a classroom at Carroll and getting it more on a theoretical level. The reality of it, I think, is very important, and they all expressed that to me. There was no question about that. But when I talked to, actually I was in the first and second grade group, I believe, mostly, so I didn't catch these boys over here, but as I spoke with the first and second graders, or maybe first and kindergarten, whatever it was, the little guys, they also were able to share with me the positives that they were getting. The fact that they have the same same Carroll student regularly, so that there's a relationship build up. The fact that the Carroll students are actually developing a personalized learning pattern for some of these kids through that book that you put together every week about what's going well and what's not going well, and how do we fix that, and the debriefing. So I was very impressed with what's going on there, and reassured that it's not just Carroll that's benefiting by any means. It's our district is benefiting big time. The fact that the kids, instead of having a 1 on 25 or so ratio all hour, or whatever it is, and she's nodding it because she loves it. For a period of time, the kids are on a 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, maybe a 1-on-3 basis with some Carroll students working with them, in this case, in reading and literacy, which is very important for the little guys. And, of course, it takes a little bit of the work off so that the teacher can be focusing on that student that needs it, correct? So, and it was just it was a marvelous display of a very positive situation. I appreciated it very much. You'll probably see me again one day, by the way. So.
What's the difference?
So when I began my resident teaching, I started in a smaller transition by fall of 2017. Part of it is their field placement, and the other part of it is a paid work study. So we have them where they're learning their field placement, and then we're also allowed to place them throughout the school, and they receive
Wow, that's wonderful for you, but for the student teacher also. That's phenomenal.
Anything else? Any other comments?
Well, I just would like to add, if I may, that, I used to have student teachers in my own building, and I know the value that you bring to a regular school. You're just fresh out of school. Your classes are, very, very new, and they're very research based. And teachers that are in classroom a long time, need to have that stimulation from student teachers. And I hope that they, come to you and ask you questions, and that you provide support, because that's what makes you so valuable in a school. So I'm impressed with what you got going over there. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. I always appreciate the partnerships that we have with Carroll. I have a soft spot in my heart for Carroll. I graduated there, and so did my wife. So,
I would add one thing, which is the reason part of the reason that we have Penn Students in the graduate program is because last school for graduate tuition. So that is
Oh, that's good.
Another benefit.
yeah, right?
Such a nice
Very good.
number in there.
Very good.
That's fantastic. Mr. Dietz?
Do you have any plans for expanding the program at other sites, or are you looking at just Hawthorne at this time, or?
Right now, we've been focused on Hawthorne in terms of,
Right.
concentrated presence. Also, like I've been involved in professional development with the staff, and so we've been able to really have a lot of layers of building those relationships between all participants. Again, that's a rollout, but there wouldn't be other ways to do that.
What's your biggest challenge? Yes.
Teachers.
Absolutely.
Navigating the current context. And so we are lucky in that we do partner.
And they can bring that back and share that with others too, and collaborate that way too. So, good.
Baumgart?
I think that we should mention, because of the load we're putting on Carol, which is a very positive load for us.
Right.
We have Carol students that come over and work with our AVID program.
Yes.
Which is a very positive situation. And I believe there's still Carol kids working over at Randall periodically. So we have some other ongoing programs. It's not just this one. And Carol has been a very, as Pat says, a very good partner for us, and we appreciate every bit. Oh yeah, Lowell.
So I mean, we do
Do well.
Mrs. Brezink?
Yes. Tell me what's good about our school district. You know, like Greg and I have been with the school district for a long, long time. Well, he works in another school district now, but, you know, I've been in Waukesha for such a long time, and it would be nice to know. I think it's great, but why do you think it's great? Or what's great about us?
So I mean, I think the partnership and collaboration for us is really powerful in the way that there is collaboration within the district and among the teachers.
Okay.
The feeling that I get in so many buildings here and the way teachers team work together and
Ah,
teams together. Trying to be innovative and try out new practices and strategies,
I
whether
would
that's
think so.
personalized learning or
We'll get some more.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate it. Alrighty, moving on. Our next section on our agenda is action items. Our first action item would be the approval of the teaching and learning minutes from November 6, 2018 meeting. I'd be looking for a motion.
So moved.
And a second? Second by Mr. Baumgart. Discussion? Any issues with it, irregularities, concerns? No? All right, then we'll take our vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to our next action item would be our annual approval of at-risk identification plan. Luke, how you doing? Good. Welcome.
Hi, Luke. Hi, Luke.
To you.
So you have in your packet a copy of our school district Waukesha plan for children at risk of not graduating from high school. This is up for annual approval, as it is every year. I will preface this by saying there have been no changes in how we identify students as at risk. And again, in spring, I'll come back to you with the numbers after we go through the process. But it is still at the heart driven by Wisconsin statute. And that statute defines children meeting the at-risk definition as students who are 1 or more year behind their age group in the number of high school credits that they've obtained, 2 or more years behind their group in basic skills, habitual truants as defined by state statute, school-age parents, adjudicated delinquents, and then 8th grade pupils who are scoring below basic on the state examination. We also then, of course, students who have ceased to attend school entirely would be instantly considered as at risk for not graduating, so those dropouts. So that's the actual state statute that we follow. The School District of Waukesha, we do have the freedom, as any district does, to add our additional criteria. We have also continued to look at students who are receiving failing grades in both English as well as English language arts as well as mathematics. So that is also a condition that we use. And we have a process. So again, although the identification hasn't changed, we've really tightened up with our staff and those teams that are doing the identification process. We've tightened up the data that they're using, how they're looking at this, the window at which they're looking at this. So we're getting to a much more consistent point of how and who we're identifying these students and staying true to the conditions that are in this plan. You'll also find in the plan just some practices around intervention that we employ. You'll find definitions about some of the key words that are in statute. There's also information about how we inform parents. There's a letter that goes out that's standardized. There's also an evaluation process for the students. All of the students that we identified do go through our problem-solving teams at the schools. So they should all have a plan that is addressing the conditions that qualified them for at-risk status. And then, of course, if the student is a student with a disability, that is planned through their individual education plan. Outside of that, there have been no major changes. We're just bringing it forth for you to approve again or ask any questions that you may have.
Questions, Mrs. Brezink?
Well, just a comment. I think your beginning statement, your philosophy, the belief of our school district is that all kids can learn. And that is just something I believe so strongly in, and that we just go above and beyond to make that learning possible for all students, not just the best students or the average students, but all students.
I would agree. We have a lot of great opportunities for all students.
Absolutely,
in this
we
district as well.
do. And that's what makes our district so great. We attend to the needs of all students.
Anything else? It's pretty straightforward. Good work, as usual. This is an action item. I'll be looking for a motion.
I'll move for the annual approval of the at-risk identification plan as presented by Luke.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is Roddy. Any further discussion on the item?
Well, if I may just may say,
Think.
again, the outstanding things that we do that people don't even realize, and we need to constantly inform parents of all the things we do, because I'm not so sure that everybody in our community realizes how we go above and beyond for all kids, and I think we need to do that.
And there is a lot of work and hours and time spent just in this process alone for our teams out there. It's not
Absolutely.
as simple as clicking a few buttons and
No.
pulling the data. There is a lot of pulling from different sources to
You
make
bet.
this happen.
You bet, but we do it.
Mr. Dietz.
Luke, with the complexity of high schools, middle schools, and the staff at those schools, how do staff know which kids are at risk?
So the staff are informed through that PST process in terms of any staff that would be in contact. So at elementary, generally it's that one teacher, but at the secondary levels, when students run through a problem-solving team, staff then are informed of the plan and that they've been through that process, and if they have a part in that plan, what that part is. So that's how they're connected to that.
So any teacher connected with an at-risk student would have background information on that student?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Question, do we follow at-risk students that go to other, what should I say, areas in the community that support at-risk students, like WCTC, et cetera?
After graduation?
No, before graduation. Do we not have some students already at those institutions that need extra help, or
I
not
don't
really?
believe we do.
You don't think so? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
Or
so-
that I've heard of, at least.
All right, great.
Anything else? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much, Luke.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty. Next up on our action items are overnight field trip requests. Sure we all looked through these?
I did, and
Yes?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I just guess in general, but particularly, the North-Southwest trip to Business Leaders of America to San Antonio, Texas. You know, the cost is $945, and I realize that there are opportunities for students to raise money to go on these trips, but I guess I'm wondering why these students even have to pay if this is an honor that they have won for doing an outstanding job.
That's a fantastic question. I believe, what, is it because it's a club, or how does that work?
I can add something to that.
Yes.
These are students who qualify to compete.
Yep.
And the district does support this, so the...
Totally?
No, not entirely.
Oh.
50% for students.
Ah.
They do get reimbursed by the activities account at the building. And so the district reimburses the activities account to assist students. But they
assist
still have the option of fundraising to be able to go.
That's a good question, Mrs. Brezink. So I have a
But-
follow-up.
Okay, go ahead.
Is the 50%, is the 945 50% of the total, or is the district cover 50% of the 945?
They cover 50% of, I believe, the $945.
$945. So
So that includes travel costs and hotel
That's-
and
yeah.
food. All of that is
sounds
reimbursable.
pretty reasonable.
But still, the students got to come up with 50%.
Yep.
You know, and I guess I always take into consideration the students that, you know, have situations that they couldn't cover 50%.
But there is a
I
fundraising
know.
form, or financial assistance form.
I know there is. But just, you know, I just think it's kind of interesting that this is an honor that we bestow upon them for a job well done. We expect them to pay something. Just a bias, but that's okay. But it's done. It's the way it is.
Yes.
Any other questions? Good question, Mrs. Brezink.
The art trip that's talked about here, that's another year out yet, so they're getting out in front of this for, is that again for fundraising?
Well, it is, and also to meet the policy requirements. The board policy requests
I
18
remember.
months.
Yeah.
I should remember that, shouldn't I?
It's okay.
Stacy will remind you.
But it's at the end of the school year, right? Is that what you're referring to?
No, it says
No,
20.
we have
It's
an
2020.
18-month, we have an
Okay.
18-month advance on these.
Okay, yeah, you're right. On the New York trip, right. Okay.
And that was put in place specifically for the fundraising, to
I
give people
understand.
an opportunity to
Sure.
get board approval first.
Sure.
And then begin fundraising instead of do fundraising and not have board approval.
Right.
Well, Joe, tell me, do we have any students, parents that still approach us and say, you know, I want my kid to go, but I really can't afford it. What more can you do to help me?
I have not had anybody
You
approach
haven't.
me and ask
Okay.
that specific question. I don't know if Stacy has.
I have not, but they generally, I believe, go to their teacher or
Oh, sure
advisor
they
for
do.
that.
What
And
we haven't heard a lot of complaints
That's
about
good.
people who can't go.
Good.
So it seems that people who have need have been accommodated at the school
Okay.
level.
Well, I see we do provide opportunities, and that's good. That's very good. If we didn't, that would be a different story. Well, I think they're wonderful field trips. They're very, very valuable. A lot of great student learning will take place as a result of all three of these trips, so.
Great. Any other questions? This is an action item, so we'll be looking for a
All right,
motion.
I'll move to accept the recommendations for field trips requests as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Brezink. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dietz. Discussion, further discussion, anything? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. All righty, moving on to our next section, would be information items. First up would be the school mental health grant update.
I'm back again,
And Mr. Pinion is back.
this time with a visual.
Great, we love visuals.
When they work.
Well, we're good right now.
Talk to the
so-
tech chair for that.
Like the kids, learn better.
So I wanted to update you on one of my most passionate and exciting parts of my role here, and that's our development and expansion of school-based mental health services in the district. Part of this is just natural development that has occurred. Other part of it is the grant that we applied for through the state. I wanted to start briefly with the why. I was in front of you around this time last year talking about the same development. And we know that research shows us 1 out of 5 students has a diagnosable mental health disorder in our schools. We also know that about 80% of those students are going untreated. So there is this huge need for mental health services and treatment within our buildings that go left untreated. This is also a national and a local trend. We see this developing more throughout the state. We see it locally as well as regionally. It's a best practice. The state has a mental health framework that we are aligning to as well with some different models that they recommend. And this is very much all about removing barriers for accessing these kinds of services that might have otherwise exist for these students, like transporting them to a clinic, parents working and not being able to get the students there, things like that. So this is our current, you've heard of the PATH program, the Providing Access to Healing. That is our program where we have the licensed community psychotherapists in our schools. The 3 schools that are our most historic model, Whittier is on year 7, Horning is on year 4, and Banting is on year 2. Those 3 schools still fall under what is a billable model. So those therapists are in our schools as if they're running a clinic, and actually those schools are certified on their end as an extension of the family service clinic. So they have a certain amount of seats that the therapists come. So at Whittier in year 7 now, they're at 20 different students or seats that are having weekly sessions for different mental health issues. The first session is always diagnostic, where they do create a diagnosis. It involves the family and an intake meeting in developing a treatment plan. And then they revisit that treatment plan every 6 sessions. Horning is in year 4, they're up to 4 seats. And Banting, this is year 2, we're now at 8 seats, whereas last year Banting was year 1 at 4 seats. So you can see, once we get in schools, they are asking for more, and it is very well received, and we're seeing really good outcomes for students. We also have, last year we started with the United Way Helping Kids Succeed grant. That was a grant that we wrote with Teaching and Learning, and we used a part of that to expand the PATH program into South, Hadfield, and Blair. This is a hybrid model that uses billable and the grant funds in order to see students, and the grant also allows us to have that therapist act in a greater capacity within that school building. So they're not bound to what they can do solely on a billable scale. So they are able to go to consultation meetings. They can consult with teachers informally and formally. They can do observations in classrooms with our staff. They can operate in a wider capacity. They can do staff training, parent training, because that grant allows us to supplement them outside of what they normally would just be able to bill for. So we are in year 2 of that grant. And then more recently, last spring into the summer, we had applied for the state DPI grant for school mental health. This was over a $3 million grant. It was highly competitive. There was 141 applications representing 182 districts throughout our state. And they awarded 64 school districts, and we were one of those that got awarded, which I believe is a testament to what we're doing and our goals for expanding this. So we were very excited about being awarded that, and we were awarded the maximum of $75,000, and we got awarded what we asked for, which was just under that. It does have a very large requirement of collaborating with our community mental health providers, and it also is about expanding the level of collaboration with our school mental health professionals as well, so our psychologists, social workers, and counselors, and how we coordinate services with our community mental health providers. So I'm going to break that down a little bit more of how we spent the funds. $15,000 of the grant we used to complete our elementary social emotional learning curriculum. We used the curriculum second step. We had 7 schools that were operating with kits that were either outdated or had missing components. So we used $15,000 of those funds to purchase them brand new kits. So they have updated versions, and now all of our elementary schools have viable updated curriculums that they're drawing from for universal social emotional learning, and then they supplement that with different evidence-based and scientific research-based interventions as well. We also freed up, we have elementary counselors that service several schools. We freed them up in the month of September to support the training and development around second steps. So there was a very strategic attempt at making sure our teachers were comfortable delivering this content and that they felt supported in doing so, because it is a teacher-driven curriculum and lessons that the teacher provides and then further reinforces throughout other content areas. And then through the safety grant that Dr. Cook wrote, we are looking to expand that second step for next year, just kind of foreshadowing out for middle schools as well. The other chunk of this grant, approximately $60,000, went to expand our partnership with Family Service and staffed community mental health partners and increase that collaboration with our school mental health partners or school mental health staff in 5 schools. Those 5 schools were Bethesda, Hawthorne, Lowell, Higher, and Prairie. This grant, again, was designed to enhance and further support the work of student services, not replace or replicate what psychologists, social workers, and counselors are already doing. The scope of the partnership, this is not designed to be one-on-one face-to-face therapy like our PATH program. This was designed to increase that partnership so they are able to co-facilitate student groups with our staff. They're able to help navigate mental health resources for staff, students, and families, provide professional learning for staff and students as well as for families, participate in case consultations, attend different team meetings, any other types of mental health awareness and advocacy, and any kinds of universal supports to help build up teachers and help teachers better meet the mental health needs of their students on the day-to-day basis. Our sustainability plan is such. This grant was designed as a one-year grant. We don't know for sure if the funds will be available, so sustainability was heavily weighted in the application. Our sustainability plan is that this will transfer into the PATH program next year. So if this grant goes away, this therapist will remain in these 5 buildings under the PATH program, and they will have already established relationships with the staff, with the students, and the families. So it will be a seamless transition when they start seeing students for one-on-one therapy. Should the grants come around again for another round, our intent is to take another new 5 schools and do the same 2-year process so that we keep scaling and expanding this service out. Some measures that we're looking at in terms of effectiveness, there's specific United Way measures that we look at in terms of increase in communication, social skills, self-regulation, understanding their problems, improved behavior, and if the families found resources beneficial, and then that level of communication and engagement with school and family. And then the DPI, the state is looking at the total number of student contacts that were made because of this grant between our community mental health provider and our school mental health providers at each site. So that, in a nutshell, is our updates. Do you have any questions for me about where we've gone with this?
Mr. Baumgart.
Going back to the the last slide with the United Way measurements or whatever you want to call it, are those actually quantifiable? Is that quantifiable data, or is it?
It's still perception data, so it's survey data, essentially. We survey students and families and teachers to get at these measures.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions? Mr. Dietz.
Luke, it's my perception that the school district of Waukesha is on the cutting edge of providing mental health services to our students in the district. I think it'd be hard to find another district that would be comparable to ours. Is that a true statement?
I would say that's a true statement, especially considering Whittier has been at this for 7 years. You would be hard-pressed to find a school in Wisconsin that was doing this 7 years ago, and that is at the scale we are at today. That being said, Family Service has expanded a lot with surrounding districts because they see what's happening and they like it, and now they've expanded to several districts around us.
So just hats off to you and your entire team. Mental health is extremely important for each and every student and the school environment. So keep up the good work. Nice job.
Thank you.
Baumgart.
You talk about Whittier having this for 7 years. I think you need to validate that things have improved at Whittier.
Yes, they
big time.
have,
And I've seen
in a lot
it
of different ways. Yes.
Yes, and I think we need to say that.
Right.
Otherwise, people are going to say, well, you got it there 7 years and it's still broken? No, it is not broken. It's definitely
A lot
getting
of
better.
improvements, even just behavior data alone.
Thank you.
Well, just give some examples of what's happened at Whittier.
Well, from what I know of, with Ms. Gannon, in terms of when she would present data around office calls, those have significantly reduced. Now, they're correlational data, right? There may be lots of contributing factors to why that is, but those were significantly reduced over the past 5 years. Discipline referrals as well had gone down. And then when you look at the measures from the United Way, we saw increases in a lot of these as well, reported out by students, parents, and teachers, in addition to that hard data of behavior.
So parents are familiar with the information that they can come to the school and receive some, at least
Yes,
listening
it's just
to and some
tricky
support.
because there's a limited number of seats, right?
Certainly.
So although it's out there, it's for it's for intensive needs. So it's not for all students. It's really for students that we identify, and we act as the problem-solving team in identifying and making the referrals to that community provider. So it is reserved for the highest need. But parents, especially at Whittier, they know that this is happening and that it exists. It's just that balance of, it's not for everybody, and we have to still be the gatekeepers of that in a way.
So kids that have been in it in the past continue as they go through the grades?
And it's nice and again, the more we expand, the more this will be able to happen. But students that have gone from Whittier to Horning, we've been able to connect the therapists from Horning from Whittier. So there's been that continuity of services as well.
Very good, very good.
Ready?
Okay.
Hi, Luke.
Hi, Amanda.
So if I heard and understand correctly, with this program, for instance, the PATH at Whittier, only the district students have access to these therapists if the buildings are certified as expanded clinics. Is that correct?
So this was a technicality on the community providers agency. They needed to, when this originally started, it was required by them that any site where they were providing services had to be certified or an extension of their clinic branch. So those 3 schools had been. That law has since gone away for their requirements.
Okay.
But they still continue to recertify those 3 schools that are under that billable model.
But those therapists are only seeing district students at
They
those
also,
locations?
they have a handful, because they have so many seats, they have several different therapists. So those therapists may also have some community cases as well, so they're not solely in Whittier clients. Versus our staff that we hired for the DPI grant, she is in 5 schools and that's her full-time role. So that therapist truly only works with the school district of Waukesha staff and students.
All right, one more question to that then. So the therapists that are working at Whittier or Horning or whatever, those, I'm going to read my own question here, sorry. Only those students at Whittier or Horning have access to those therapists. Okay, so then if there's a child at another school in the district, they don't have access to that therapist because they're not at Whittier or Horning?
Not within
Not
the
yet.
building. No, not yet. So the more we expand, the more likely we'll be able to have other students accessing that are in schools that are not on these lists.
And then those students who do have access to those therapists, you answered already by saying it's at most need
Yep. And
Okay.
we identify those as the staff, the school team.
with your at-risk plans.
Part of it, yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Do the school therapists work sometimes in cooperation with a student's private therapies? Private therapists?
When you say school therapists, do you mean our psych, social workers, and
Yeah.
counselors, or the community-based therapist that's in the building?
Well, the people that are in the building, those are,
We are always working as closely as possible with community-based providers. We know that that's in the best interest of students when
Sure
we're
it
all
is.
using the same language, the same goals. So we are constantly getting releases of information to be able to have that reciprocal communication back and forth with community providers.
okay. So these community providers, we would say, are they private providers?
In a
In
sense,
addition-
yes,
in
contracted
addition.
with the school.
Yeah, in addition to what they get at school. Okay,
Else?
Good news.
Stuff.
good stuff.
Always good stuff.
Real good stuff.
Great. Luke,
Mr.
thank-
McCaffrey, if I
Yes.
might. I think it's important to remember this, occasionally board members will hear from community members that we aren't doing anything around mental health. And they will, either speak publicly or reach out to you privately about that. I think it's important to note that we do have all of the steps that Luke had mentioned tonight around PATH and other mental health models. We are addressing this at a universal level through that second step curriculum, and we're making sure that that's being delivered. But we've also, through about the last 5 years worth of work, we've increased the number of school psychologists and counselors and social workers in our district by 8 FTE over the past 4 or 5 years, which has allowed us to go back, and Mrs. Brzezinski would remember this, Mr. Dietz, when we had elementary counselors in all of our schools.
Yes.
We now have all of our buildings staffed with at least one full-time student services staff member to help address these things
Great.
at the universal level when we can catch these things much sooner. And so when you hear criticisms of our program, I think it's important to remember what was presented tonight so that you have at least the other side of the story as to what's going on.
I agree.
I hope it's reassuring to you that I don't hear criticism.
It is. It is.
And I was going to say the same thing, Joe. I really never get any complaints from people about that. So I would say that for the most part, people are satisfied. Or maybe they are unaware, but I don't get any complaints.
Excellent.
Well
Thank you
said.
very much.
I'll stay up here for Mrs. Rogers.
Awesome.
You done?
Great. No,
Kind of.
this is it's the Luke Pinion Show tonight. All righty, the next information item would be East Alternative School Update.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you
Evening.
for having me tonight. I'm
Thanks
Tia
for coming.
Rogers. I'm the principal over at Waukesha East. Tonight I'll be giving an update on our program and enrollment, some of the new things we're doing at East this year. And throughout the presentation, I have embedded just some photos that highlight some of those new things that we've changed for this school year. So first, I just wanted to begin with sharing what our 2 goals are from our theory of action this year. Just based on past data and just reflecting with our team, our first goal is really around increasing daily attendance by utilizing a multi-level system of support, which includes following established district attendance policies and procedures, employing best practices related to attendance, and regularly monitoring attendance. So some of our big pieces that we're doing to help us achieve our first goal is utilizing the SST and PST process. We have an attendance committee that includes staff and students on our attendance committee. We also employ incentives, so we do attendance challenges. We do some on an individual basis as well as school-wide challenges for our students so they can work collectively as a community for some of those incentives as well. And then we also utilize our homeroom time as a time where students can go into an Infinite Campus, check their attendance, and they can keep track of their own attendance so they can know, if they're meeting expectations or if they're falling a little behind. Our second goal is around increasing student engagement by building relational capacity and implementing high leverage engagement strategies. So of course, we want students to come to school, but then we want to keep them coming by having them engaged in learning and having those relationships with our staff when they come. So we are an AVID school, so we're combined with eAchieve. We practice the AVID school-wide over at East. So we do implement AVID Wicker strategies and other engagement strategies. From a relational standpoint, we implemented Friday assemblies, which really focus on the community building and the social emotional learning. And then for the past 2 years, we've also developed social contracts. And this year, what we did differently with our social contracts is instead of having each individual classroom write social contracts, we actually wrote it as a school. So so students had input, staff has input, and we all follow it. So it's not something different for students because we used to have 2 separate ones. Now we just have one that we all follow in our school. I'm sorry.
Could you elaborate on what a social contract might say?
So with our social contract, so basically it's developed primarily by students, and it's just focusing on how students want to be treated by staff, how they want to be treated by each other, and how do we resolve conflict when it arises. So our major theme in our social contract, when the students worked on it, was just around respect. It was, we want to be treated like adults. We want to have a voice. So our social contract this year is just, we will treat each other with respect by, and then we listed what were those main bullet points: by being kind to one another, by listening and not reacting. So we just have a lot of major bullet points. And this year we have it posted really big. So if you ever want to pop by East, it's posted throughout the building so you can see what it is, as well as there is a copy in every classroom already.
The social part of it is that community at East.
Exactly. So it's our community, both staff and students. So really just how we want to be treated.
Great, thank you.
What goes on at your Friday assemblies? I'm interested in that. I like that concept.
Oh, well, this is one of the first ones. So as I mentioned, our Friday assembly is around community building. And what I just highlighted was 2 of the activities that we did as a whole group this semester. So Friday assembly starts with announcements. So I do the announcements, and we do any recognition. So of course we've been doing a lot of attendance recognitions, which I'll share a little bit later. So we'll do attendance recognitions. Teachers will come and give shout outs to students. So we try to keep that first part of assembly very positive. And another one of our attendance challenges is if students maintain as a school 85% or above attendance for the prior week, the staff makes them pancake breakfast on Friday. So actually we start with pancake breakfast if they earned it, and they've earned it all but 2 weeks this school year. And then we go into the assembly part, and then we break into our whole group or small group activities. So these 2 that are photographed, the first one is a student actually a student group led this activity. It was Human Foosball. So they wanted to plan it, they wanted to do it, so they organized everything, and a group of us, we did the Human Foosball as our Friday assembly, and again, it's just around teamwork, and then of course the social piece, and we just want to continue to community build. And then in October, we painted pumpkins. So, and these are all 17 and 18-year-olds, and it was amazing to see how they got into decorating their pumpkins. And a lot of our activities are sponsored by our staff. So one of our teachers, she brought in all the small pumpkins for the students. I purchased the supplies for them to paint the pumpkins, but it just is a really cool way for the community building to happen. So these were just two of many, because we've been up and running since the first Friday of the school year, and both staff and students look forward to it every Friday. Let's see. So transitioning into our program offerings, so this school year, East does only primarily service juniors and seniors. The 10th and 11th graders are being serviced in the home high school. So a new model that we're doing this school year to intervene earlier, so it's not so many upperclassmen that end up over by East. With the change in just primarily servicing the juniors and seniors, the programs that we're offering this school year is our credit program. We offer a half and full day program, and the credit program is simply students who are on track to graduate with their credit-based diploma from the school district of Waukesha, so they're still working towards attaining those 25 credits. Our senior competency program is just for our senior students, and these are students who are significantly behind in credits, so they're more than 2 years behind their grade level peers. So we may, get a student who comes to us as a senior, could come from a different district, could be within district with, 9 or 10 credits their senior year. So we have this program, which is an amazing opportunity for students, because we're really focusing on those career readiness skills that they're going to need, because most of this population does go right into the workforce. However, we do have some that will go to WCTC, so we're not leaving out that college piece. But we really focused on, through the rewriting of curriculum last year, what are the things these students really need to know so they're successful going right into the workforce and or going into a tech school right out of high school. We have our GED Option 2 program, and this is a program through the Department of Public Instruction. So we do follow the guidelines of that program. We do have a coordinator in our building, Becky Kozak, who is a former Option 2 teacher who's transitioned into a different role. But we do have a population of students in our Option 2 program, and this, again, is a program for students who are also at least 2 years behind their grade level peers. However, these are students who are high performing academically, so they have the skill set that they can go in and pass the 4 different GED tests, and we utilize those tests as meeting the graduation requirements for the school district of Waukesha, as well as other components of the program that the students have to compete. Students in this program have to maintain 90% attendance, they have to be employed, so this is a very it's not easy for students to maintain. So, and what I found this school year in particular, a lot of going off of Luke's presentation, a lot of our students with mental health needs who were either like on homebound or different things and just anxiety in the school, a lot of our students where they have the academic ability to easily, if they didn't have the mental health, to graduate from any of our home high schools with stellar grades. They have high ACT scores, but because they can't be in the home high schools because of their mental health, these are students who tend to end up in our Option 2 program. And then we have our Aspire program. This is for our students identified with special education needs. So they're over by us, and we do have a full-time special education teacher that case manages this program. And then also the Bayans program is housed at our school, so that's not a program we offer, it's a program that's just serviced at our building. And then I just identified our full day schedule, because that is something new to East this year, the full day, which is 8 to 2:15, and then we still do have the half day AM and PM sessions. And again, you'll see a theme with my photos. They're highlighting our Friday assemblies, but we've also used our Friday assemblies to bring in community members. We've had 3 different community members come in so far this school year. to present. We had the workforce development come in. They did a workshop on manufacturing. Typically, we send students to that, but this year they asked could they come to us so they could see more students. So that was earlier in the year. We had a motivational speaker come in back in September, which was a huge hit with our students, and they were super engaged. And then we also had a speaker from the Women's Center come in, but she did 2 small group activities. So we broke our students over 2 Fridays, and then she did a workshop on healthy relationships with our students. Our enrollment, so our year-to-date enrollment has been 89 students. Our current enrollment, we're at 79 students, 13 female, 47 males. Our enrollment has dropped by that 10. We did have 6 of our super seniors, which these are 5th year returning seniors, have graduated so far this year. So they came and got it done, and we have 2 that are really close this week that should be finishing up. We had 3 withdrawals. 2 families decided to homeschool, so they were withdrew, and then 1 transferred out of district, and then 1 student dropped due to habitual truancy because they never stepped foot in the building all school year. So that's where our numbers are. We do a roll-in enrollment at quarter, so these numbers will definitely go up at semester when we get another round of students based off semester grades. We anticipate a significant increase in those numbers to make sure our seniors are getting it done and getting graduated in June. Another piece that we're implementing this year is service learning. So this is a group that went out to Frame Park earlier this year, and they did different tasks. That's one of our teachers, Lori Hughes, who is heading our service learning. So that was a group of students, and right now we're just doing it on a voluntary basis. We're hoping to make it a part of our curriculum eventually, so all students are exposed to it, but we've had 3 different opportunities so far this school year, and I would say each time we had about a group of 10 students that volunteered on their own to be a part of it. So we're hoping this is something we can develop more over time. Why East? Again, and this was just some of the things I get asked all the time. Why should my student come there? What do you offer at East? What makes East different? Our class sizes are a 15-to-1 ratio. However, most of our classes actually have 2 adults because we do have 2 full-time educational assistants that work in our building, so they're in classes as well as I mentioned earlier, we have a full-time special education teacher that co-teaches in several of our classes as well. We have a small staff, so it's easy for our students to get to know our staff, even if they're not their teachers, and build those lasting relationships. We have flexibility at East, so we could be very creative with schedules and accommodating to students and families. This year, we have been able to offer some accelerated classes, so students that are coming to us, behind in credits, needing multiple English credits, we've made combined English classes this year because it's the same standards for 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. So we made that a hybrid class so students can earn credits faster. Again, we're working really heavily this year just on that sense of community at East and the community building. We have a variety of program options, and then, of course, we're an additional support and resources. A lot of our students are still split between East and the home high school, so we're able to be that support that they need to get back on track. And some do eventually return to the home high school full time, but some, they just find success with being at East and the home high school, so they just choose to continue that model throughout their high school career.
Do we have many out-of-district students coming to East?
Not many. I would say in our option 2, our GED option 2, we do take students from the Elmbrook School District.
From Elmbrook?
Yes.
Okay.
So with our quarter 1, so this is just a picture before I go into some further just celebrations from the school year so far. As I mentioned, we're really focusing on attendance. So this group of students were all students who had 85% or above attendance for the first quarter of the school year. There were a lot of students who were really close, but this was a group. It's missing a couple, but we were pleased that we had, this many students, and they were super excited to come up at assembly and be recognized. And then we also With it being the start of the school year, teachers getting to know their students, we decided for quarter one, instead of just doing a student of the month, we did a student of the quarter. So that was recognizing our student who just did an awesome job, just academically, behaviorally, and then also just showing leadership amongst her peers. So that was just to highlight those students. And then to wrap us up, just some other highlights and celebrations. So far this school year, we've maintained 85% attendance or above. In the past, our attendance has really been a challenge. We, in the past 2 years, hovered around the low 70s with our attendance. So that's very pleasing to me that our attendance is maintaining to this point in the year. Even our students, when it gets cold outside, they don't like to come to school. So even that they're bundling up and making it. And again, I talked about our Pancake Fridays, our attendance challenges, and then we have our student attendance ambassadors, we call them, but they sit on our attendance committee with our staff. So they give input on what would be some challenges, what would be some incentives that students would like. Our community building, again, I talked a lot about the Friday assemblies, but our social worker runs a senior girls group once a week, and this is really just building relationships, talking about next steps after high school, really bringing them together as a group of young ladies and just talking through some of those pieces. And then our staff collaboration has been amazing this year. They make the Friday assemblies happen. I provided the groundwork, and they really have taken it and run with it this year. As I mentioned, we've had 6 graduates so far this year, with more to come. And these are 2018 graduates, so I'm glad they returned and they're getting it done. Avid School-wide has been very positive in our building. You can, see it in classrooms when you're walking through. And then we were asked last school year to host the Regional NARIN mini conference, which we did this past October. And we had 50 at-risk educators over at East, and they got to see what we do, tour of the building, and it was just a really positive event and really got our name out there in a positive light. So, questions?
Questions, Mr. Baumgart?
First of all, it's been a long time since we had a presentation from East High School, and I want to compliment you on it because I think we're finally having good stuff to talk about, and you know that I know what that's about. So. The other thing I was pleased with, there are actually several things in there, but one of them I was really pleased to hear when you're talking about the students that have mental health issues. It's not that long ago that the old Harvey Phillips building was referred to as a place you went to for behavior problems because you were just a goof-off. And we began, at least some of us began to understand that things were going on in that school that the kid just could not survive in a crowded high school because they would have anxieties and panic attacks and things like that. And you brought that out, I think, in your presentation, that we have other reasons to have that school there, and those are important reasons, and I liked to hear that. So, and the other thing that was very pleasing to hear was the super senior program. How long have we been doing that now? It's only a couple of years, isn't it? Or maybe you don't even.
Well, it's been since I've been here.
Yeah,
so
I would guess. I just realized that you've only been here a couple of years.
But I think before me, students were invited to come back in return.
Do you have any idea that? I mean, you got 6 of them out of 10 this time. 3 of them for other reasons. 3 or 4 we lost, or along the way something.
Well, even with those particular students weren't super seniors. So the ones.
Or not.
So yeah.
Those
so
are just the 10 that you lost.
So those were just students just at East that.
Okay.
Moved on. So
are we having a lot
4.
of success with the super senior concept?
With this group this year, yes.
Yeah.
We have, like I said, we've had a couple that I've had to, bring in, hey, because their attendance was slipping and they weren't doing what they needed to do. But most of the students were, that have come back have been super motivated. I actually had a student who is a super senior who came back as a 5th year, didn't get it done. Then he came back over summer to meet with me to say, I'm in this job. I don't want to be in this place. I really recognize how important my high school diploma is. Can I come, and get it done? And he's one of the, 2 that I said are really close to being finished this week. So he's, again, a super, super senior. And our doors open until age 20. So he just turned 20. So he knew by January he had to get it done. So he comes and he works full time and, supports himself. But I've worked with him. I gave him, a reduced, adjusted schedule, and he comes and he does what he needs to do.
Just confirms what we've said and Barbara's mentioned before. We find ways to get the kids
Yeah.
whatever they need, and I appreciate the work you do over there for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think that how you meet the needs, the variety of needs that exist in a school district, not just our school districts, but all school districts. And I just think what we're doing there is so outstanding, and how we save the lives of students and help them to go on is just amazes me. I'm so proud, and I brag about this program wherever I go because it's one of the most special things our district does, that we acknowledge and provide support for students in need. Job well done. I have visited over there, not this year, but you just do phenomenal things with students that are not motivated to come to school. Attendance is a big issue. I don't know why, but it is. Always
But they're
has
coming
been.
now.
Pardon me?
I said, but they're coming now.
Yeah, but they're coming now. You're doing the right thing. That's what's amazes me. Keep it up.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for the report.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
This is Roddy.
Yes, thank you. Great report. Thank you. You answered a lot of questions that I've had. Kind of coming off of what Mr. Baumgart said, you had mentioned that you're super, super senior, and that led to a question that I had. Can families or students self-enroll into East, or does it need to be a progression and it's referred by?
It's referred through the home high school. So it starts at the home high school, but if it's a student that's already been through East, so some of these fifth-year seniors, so if they're one of our seniors that didn't finish, they don't need to go through the home high school. If they go to enrollment, re-enroll, we'll accept them. But if it's a new family to East, they do need to be referred through the home high school. And I work collaboratively with all the home high school counselors. And if there's like an urgent case outside of our enrollment window, a new transfer to the district, we are very flexible, and we just make sure that we're getting students at East that need to be there.
So if a parent came in, probably working with the counselors already, but they say, you know what, I want this 15-to-1 ratio, I want this flexibility, I want this for my student, they can't ask to have that if the parent feels that they think their student needs this extra support.
Then if a parent contacts us directly, they are redirected to the home high school just to get the referral process, but it's a Google form. So I get it immediately. So if it's a student that's a good fit for East, and just going back to what Joe mentioned, they also have to meet at-risk indicators, because we do have some students, where families will say, oh, I want my kid there because of the small class sizes, but they don't meet any at-risk indicators, or it's a student that wants to graduate early. So we do have on the referral form, they do have to at least meet one of the at-risk indicators, but we did this year also include mental health, because by board policy, we don't list mental health as one of the at-risk indicators, but because I see the need of students and all the referrals that's come to East, just simply mental health, I've also just added that as one of the reasons that we would accept a student to East. No problem.
Another question, please. You mentioned 20. I guess I thought that the state required us to service kids to 21. Has that changed, or?
That's for students with disabilities.
Special education.
For students with disabilities.
And they're not considered students.
These are not students with disabilities. Students with disabilities can receive an education through their 21st year. Students who are at risk can receive an education through their 20th year.
Okay.
And that's you don't even need the at-risk designation. You can actually, that's listed in the state constitution. It's Article 10 of the state constitution.
Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't understand that.
Mr. Dietz.
Just an open invitation to you and the students at East High School. Every board meeting, we have a report from the other three high schools. And there are so many exciting things that I've heard tonight that are happening at East. If there's a way that either you or some of your students could ever report out to all of
I'm
us.
on it for next month.
Oh, are you really?
Yes.
Awesome.
So we will be back.
That's awesome because
Good to hear.
it'd be nice to, for everyone to hear all those things that are happening there. And I just want to thank you for all your extra time and efforts. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Please come back every year and give us an update of the wonderful things that are going on, because the way we save the lives of students is so incredible. So keep reminding us of the great things you're doing over there. Because
Will
I'm
do.
sure, based on student needs, you do different things every year.
True.
Roddy?
One more. I have notes all over my page, so I found the other piece. I have the privilege of both sitting on this board, but also one of the board of directors for the Women's Center. And so to hear about the collaborations and the bringing in our counselors over there into the school is such a great thing. I love that community connection. I know we've been talking about that a lot tonight, but that's, I know the lady who's come in, and
Okay.
she's very much looking for more opportunities. So
Okay.
please invite her back.
We will. Expecting her in the spring.
Excellent work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Very well, that
Standing.
concludes our information items for this evening. Next up would be our discussion items. And the first one up is Sunday reading update. Mr. Gahan. Huh?
No, Luke?
No, Luke is out of this one. Unless he wants to come up and sit at the table.
Thank you very much.
We might have a special appearance by Luke Pinion.
He's ignoring you.
Did you want to come up?
Jason.
Luke, did you want to come up? There you go.
Nice.
Good evening.
Good evening.
With me here tonight to provide the board an update on the state of Sunday reading intervention in Waukesha is Laura Edwards, the special education teacher and special education chair at South High School, and Marianne Kirsch, special education teacher and special education department chair at Butler Middle School. Before we get into that, we are in our third year of implementation already. It seems like just last year we were launching our initial three-day training upstairs in 213-15, but here we are already in year 3. Throughout the last 3 years, we are up to approximately 100 staff that have been trained in this intervention. Initial training, as we've designed it, is a 2-day training that has included, in many instances, follow-up observations by the trainer. The training, the 100 staff that I had mentioned are mostly certified special education teachers. They do include a handful of assistants as well that have served a great role for us in the implementation. At present time, at least as of yesterday, we have 256 students in our district, K-12, that are engaged in groups at present time. 256 students that are a part of 100 groups currently running across our district. We will go into some updates, observations, and some data from Butler and South, and then I'll wrap it up with a brief discussion about next steps that we want to head with the intervention.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. So at Waukesha South, as was just mentioned, we're just beginning year 3. We're year 2 of running our intervention groups with Sunday. And so we've been monitoring beginning in the 15-16 freshman year and coming through. And so that's what you'll see on your front page, that graphic. So if you'll note, in our 15-16 year, the freshmen that were coming in, we had 64% that were identified with a disability that had significant need in the area of reading. Overall, 79% of students were not tracking to be college ready in the area of reading. The following year, these students then had the opportunity to participate in reading interventions as well as Sunday. One of the things I do want to mention is that we are providing interventions not only for students that are identified in the area of reading, but any student that has a deficit in the area of reading. So it's not just students with disabilities in the area of reading. That following year, we noted that gap closed. So we decreased to 59%, with 75% overall that still had deficits in the area of reading. What was really exciting to see then was the following year, those kids that participated in the ACT test. This is when we saw kind of our biggest area of growth. We had 68% of students that were not college ready. However, we had 29% of students that were college ready. And if you look at kind of our data over 4 years of tracking, that was really our most successful year. And we had students that were not only college ready, but we had students that were 28 and above. And that was not something that South had seen in previous years.
Ready for me? Okay. So Jason asked me to also look at data from Butler, and I did not bring you a fancy graph, but I instruct in the Sunday program, so I took 8 students that I started with when they were 6th graders, and they are now 8th graders, and I looked at their data over the last 3 years. I looked at their MAP data, their forward exam data, and I looked at their running records that we take in conjunction in class to look at their progress. And of the 8 students, all 8 of these students grew in at least 2 out of those 3 categories. 6 out of the 8 students grew in all 3 categories, so we saw them make that progress in all 3 areas. 6 of the 8 students showed an improvement of 3 grade levels in the 2 years they've been in the Sunday program. And 5 out of the 8 students have shown 4 or more years growth in their grade level running records. One of our students was dismissed at her IEP this year because her reading is on grade level, and she is successfully independent in her classes without any intervention from special education.
Wow.
When I talked to Jason, I was like, oh, can I tell a story about a student? And he said, no, bring data, but I'm going to tell you a story about a student because that's who I am. I'll make it short.
Just don't use names.
What? No names. I was going to say. So I have a young gentleman in 6th grade. He was very angry. He did not want to be in group with me. He fought me, and I sit the kids down and I say, my goal with this program is when you leave Butler, you do not need reading intervention anymore. Work with me. Let's make this happen. He frequently was in trouble in his classes because he was very frustrated because things were being given to him. Even with modifications, he was struggling. But he was making progress, and at the end of his 6th grade year, the light was starting to go on. He was like, hey, in class today, I read that. And I was like, I told you you could do it. So 7th grade comes, we work at it. He sees himself progress through both of our books, and he is seeing the progress in class. He does not need me to come in and give him modified work. He is advocating more. His behaviors have significantly decreased. And so he came into my reading class this year and he sat down and he said, Mrs. Kirsch, this is it. You got to teach me vocabulary. That's what I'm lacking. I can read, but I don't know what the words mean. And so he comes every day and he will be like, okay, here's the words. Let's figure it out. So this is a student who went from significant behaviors. He is experiencing a lot of independence. He is currently 6 months below where he should be as an 8th grader in reading, and we're going to get him out. So
Great
that's my
story.
feel-good story. Sorry, Jason.
Great story.
She gets the star for that.
I always have to tell a story.
If we had other teachers from across our system present on the data or anecdotal stories or success stories, as Marianne is not shy to share, which is awesome. And she's not the only one, and we could certainly go around it and have more representation of that. What you have seen tonight or heard about tonight is we have a variety of data sources that we're using in the district. Some state assessments, it was mentioned on here, ACT, Aspire, MAP assessments. Marianne mentioned running records as well. All great informational pieces of evidence that we can use to inform our instruction. The other one that is left out is also the Ames Web, a data source, a computer-generated assessment that's standardized, that's integral in an RTI system, that is also used in pockets. We didn't hear about it tonight, but it's also used across our system in pockets as well. One of the goals moving forward, and we've been working diligently with Windsor Learning, the company who produces Sunday Reading, is a common assessment across our system that we can make larger scale decisions, larger scale picture of what the data is looking like. A progress monitoring tool that's utilized K-12. We currently utilize the current sources or resources that were discussed tonight in pockets, but it's not consistent across our system. So that's the direction that we want to move. Our representatives from Windsor Learning had said that that's the movement across the nation. When they work with districts and they ask about progress monitoring, Ames is their first go-to. It's a pretty common assessment across the nation. At present time, we have many staff members that either have used it, are currently using it, or have been out just enough that they would like a refresher. As I shared, we're currently in the process of developing a kind of a course for second semester to re-engage, to reteach, and to make sure that we're calibrated as a system of those teachers who are implementing this intervention across our system, so that when we have these types of discussions moving forward, we can not only present on the types of data that the state wants us to present on, but we can also present on progress monitoring data consistent across our system.
I have one.
Everyone?
No.
Just-
Really?
You did a good job.
You did a great job, but that is
It's the pictures.
question.
I do
Mr.
gotta study
Dietz,
I'm gonna
you
study
saved
the
them.
data.
Yes,
Want to
I
keep them
did.
around a while?
Yeah, we can keep him around a while. Mr. Dietz.
3 years ago, Jason invited me to the Sunday training, and I think he thought I was only going to be there for like an hour or two, but I actually went for the full training. And it has been the best program that I've ever used to teach kids reading. It gives me the resources and the confidence to feel like a reading expert. And just amazing growth from kids and success stories like the two of you have shared. And I'm sure those success stories are at the elementary level as well. The thing I like about what Waukesha's doing, they start with the training, they do the refresher, and then they have coaches that actually come in and observe teachers and give them feedback, which is the ultimate as far as a professional development model. So I want to congratulate Jason on his leadership, the staff in Waukesha that are implementing the program, and to let you know that it's benefited me as well and the students that I work with in the same manner that it has with you. So nice job. It's an amazing program. And it's pretty simple to implement. It's all packaged. It's right there, available. I'm not searching for tons of materials. It's multi-sensory, which is one of the biggest things. So kids are touch spelling, they're tracing. There's a lot of progress monitoring like they talked about, but it's an amazing program, and I think the students in this district are very fortunate to have it implemented at all levels. So, nice job.
Thanks, Mr. Dietz, and I'll just add that it's the 100+ staff that we have trained who are teaching students to read every day, and the students themselves for persisting through their disability in many cases who deserve the applause.
Would you say that for the most part, the students that have participated in your program graduate on a reading level, on their reading level, on their appropriate reading level, grade level reading level?
The students, at least at the high school level that we've had going through,
Yes.
just because we're in year 2 of
Yes.
implementation, but I do know that I have within my specially designed instruction class that I'm facilitating, I have 3 students that have graduated out now since last year in our ag grade level. And we're continuing to see kids that are progressing through. I think as we continue to move forward, we're going to see more of that happening. Because it allows, and it is a very rapid paced program. And the one nice thing about it is because we have a 60-minute block, the program calls for 30 minutes. We're not only able to work on that decoding piece, but then we can bring in some of that comprehension and really work on that fluency and apply the strategies that they're learning.
Probably noted too how their self-esteem improves.
Absolutely.
You know, with their mastery. Oh, it's
Yes.
incredible. I understand because I have a nephew that has struggled and never really received, any support in high school, and continues to struggle and feels like a failure. And if he could have been a part of something like this, wow.
Yeah, I have a student right now who we're just finishing the Crucible in English 11. And I've worked with him now. This is my 3rd year working with him. And he had confidence. He acted out a part. He acted out one of the major roles, John Proctor, and was flawless. And I don't think without something like this, he would have been able to do that.
The next time I come for an update, I'll bring data on kids who are graduating from the program, because they're not only graduating, which means that they're completing and passing all the level assessments within the program, but then that's also meaning that they're successful in the classroom. So
That's,
I will bring that. We have not collected that because up until this point, we've been really focused on implementation fidelity, and now we're to the point of progress monitoring. So we're maintenance with implementation, but progress monitoring. But your graduation request will be a part of my
you know,
next
it's one
update.
thing for a school district to acknowledge the needs of students, but it's really outstanding when you provide support. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. Great report.
Thanks for all you do.
Alrighty. Next item up on our discussion item agenda is the school report card data.
Ah, there she
Welcome
is,
back.
Amy. Jesus,
Hello. Not working for you? Oh, it's gonna work.
There we go. All right.
Got it, we don't.
So you should have on your desk a copy of the one-page Waukesha District report card for this year. As you may remember, the Department of Public Instruction every fall issues a school and district report card for every every public school and district in the state of Wisconsin. So,
Good.
oh, just lost it. That's okay. I'm just going to keep talking. It should come back up. So, the release of the report cards for the 17-18 school year occurred on November 13th. So they were publicly released on the DPI website, and we shared those. Schools shared their report cards out with families, and we shared the results with the media as well. So this is the 6th year that DPI has released those accountability report cards, and it's the 3rd year that they've done it with this kind of current framework and current calculations. And you may remember from previous times when we've talked about this that it is very easy to quickly get into a lot of in-depth, complicated calculations, and so we're going to not do that tonight, and I'm just going to give you the overview. But I do have all of the resources if anybody really wants to dig into a particular report card. I'm happy to sit down and do that with you, but it's can get very complex very quickly. So we'll do just the overview tonight. So the report card calculations are based on 3 years of assessment data. And for the first time for elementary and middle school report cards, we had 3 years of forward exam data. So previously we had 2 years of forward data and 1 year of the Badger exam, that test that we gave just that 1 year, or WKCE data was figured in. Those WKCE and Badger are more than 3 years behind us now, so this was the first year of all forward data. At the high school level, they use the 11th grade ACT plus writing, and then for both elementary, middle, and high school, we also include the results of the dynamic learning maps, which is that alternate assessment we use with about 1% of our students with significant disabilities. So all of these assessment results we've really talked about previously. So because you've seen me now several months in a row. So all of those results we've seen before. But all of that goes into this report card for each school. So like I said, you've got the school district report card in front of you. I will give you the highlights of what's included there. Just a couple of cosmetic changes from previous years. As you've seen before, on the top left side there is an overall score, and those are color-coded, and there are stars that correspond with particular ratings. Just a reminder that number is a score, it's not a percentage. So it doesn't read like a typical A through F report card kind of. It is a score that's calculated on a number of particularly priority areas. And those priority areas you can see on the right side of the report card. They're in bold. They're student achievement, and that's based on the student scores on those assessments I mentioned. student district or school or district growth, and that is based on how students have improved over time. We don't have a growth score at high school because we only give year one assessment at high school, but we have multiple years at elementary and middle, so we do measure growth. They measure closing gaps, so that looks at, for example, how students with disabilities perform compared to students who don't have disabilities, students who are English language learners with native speakers, et cetera. And then they also look at on-track and post-secondary readiness, and they measure that based on the graduation rate, the attendance rate at the schools, and then 2 research-based indicators of students' on-track performance and readiness for higher learning, and that's 3rd grade English language arts scores. We know if students at 3rd grade are not proficient, they're more at risk of not being college and career ready years down the road, as well as 8th grade mathematics. That's similar research behind that. So they use a combination of those scores to come up with the overall score. Whether more importance is placed on the achievement score or the growth score depends on a school or district's percent of economically disadvantaged students. And previously, we had this kind of sliding scale online that we would use to figure out, well, what if your school is this percent economically disadvantaged, growth is weighted this, and achievement is weighted this. And this year, for the first time, they put those priority area weights right on the report card. So under post-secondary, on-track and post-secondary readiness, that box right underneath shows how those different priority areas are weighted to determine the overall score. So for Waukesha, student achievement is weighted at 28.4% of our score, and growth is 21.6%. So because we have roughly 30% of our students who are economically disadvantaged, student achievement is weighted higher than the growth is in our calculation. So, and each school looks a little bit different, but for the first time they put those scores right on the report card so that we can see how that is calculated. And then closing gaps and on-track and post-secondary readiness are each 25% of the score. On the bottom half of the report card, we have district information, so some demographic information, so you get some context for the district and the scores that are received. We also have student engagement indicators that the DPI has identified. This is where a school or district could lose some points if they haven't met those engagement indicators. So they look for an absenteeism rate of less than 13% and a dropout rate of less than 6%. So if you did not meet those goals, you might receive a 5 or 10 point deduction off that overall total score. For the school district of Waukesha, we met both of those, so we did not have any deduction. You might remember that a few years back, there was also, within that student engagement indicators, one of the indicators was test participation. And so if we didn't have 95% of our students participate in the assessments, we could have a 5 or 10 point deduction there as well. They have not included that this year as a potential deduction, but they did include for the first time right there on the, right underneath the student engagement indicators, they did put the percentage of students participating in assessments there on the front of the report card, so it's a little more transparent about how schools and districts are doing with that. So you can see they look at the rate of participation for both English language arts and math in 1 year and over 3 years. And they give us an all-student rate, and then they also highlighted which was our lowest subgroup participating in assessments. And you can see for Waukesha, it was our students with disabilities. And their participation, it was 95% or just over in ELA and just under 95% in math. So, and again, test participation, that includes students who don't test for a variety of reasons, including parent opt-outs. That's counted as part of that percentage.
Baumgart.
Oh, go ahead.
Over on the district information.
Yes.
Ability in between district, I don't know what that means.
Within the school district of Waukesha and then between one Wisconsin school district and another Wisconsin school district is my understanding of that.
Okay.
So,
So within a given
You're wondering
year.
what that means?
yes, within a school year, how they're moving.
Questions about the,
I've got
Heard?
just a couple more slides, so. Okay, so how did we do? We had a number of schools that significantly exceeded expectations or exceeded expectations. So I've included those there along with their scores. For the purposes of report cards, our academies at South are each a separate school, and then our STEM Academy is considered one school. Clarify that. So, and then on the meets expectations or meets few expectations, you'll notice in the far right column there, we do have a few schools or programs that do not receive a traditional report card. That can be for a number of reasons, like East, where they serve exclusively at-risk students. Maybe that they didn't have any students enrolled at the grades at which we test, or they may have had fewer than 20 students who participated in assessments, and in that case, they don't consider that enough of a sample size to issue a report card. So the principals of those schools or programs complete an alternate accountability form where they talk about the goals that they set for their school and the progress toward meeting those goals. And all of our schools who participated in the alternate accountability all made satisfactory progress. So, and we had no schools that failed to meet any the expectations this year, so we're pleased with that. So, and Whittier is very close to meeting expectations. The 63 is where they need to be, so they're moving up there. Other questions?
Is EHE still suffering from the one on attendance because of their dropouts? You know, they send people back when they're not doing their jobs, and we get.
Yes, and actually, eAchieve had been in the fails to meet category because of that, and they moved up a category this year. So
But it's
that
still,
got a little better.
I
but
think
it
they're
is
doing
still
the
an
right
issue.
thing there,
Right.
but they get dinged on it.
They do.
Okay.
They do. Yeah, and they're also in a little bit of a different category because they, both the elementary and the secondary eAchieve programs, more than 50% of their students are open enrolled to their school, so their scores don't figure in as a part of our district report card.
Oh.
So it's just a little bit, again, there are lots of nuances to how all this comes together.
Why does it take so long? You know, the test is given in April.
Yes.
Why does it take so long to get the results?
It takes time for the tests. It takes time for data cleanup. We see the initial reports. I think we saw the data in the end of September. We got the initial report cards, and then like with eAchieve, we noticed there were some changes that needed to be made related to their dropout data. So we filed a data inquiry with DPI that gives us some time to gather the evidence and share that with them. But then they have to go through all of those data inquiries and kind of clean those up. And so it's just a process. But I would say that, you know, every month when I come to talk with you about data, I always talk about action steps. And really, the action steps for the report cards really relate to all of the assessments and all of the action steps that we've talked about in previous months. All of those eventually lead to improved report card scores. But because this data is already 6 months old, I mean, it's long been analyzed and results and action steps put into place. So we would love for it to be here more quickly. So, but at least we're starting to get assessment data back a little bit sooner, so we have time to make it more actionable.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Aren't we proud, Amy?
Yeah, a lot of things to celebrate here.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's for sure. Okay, next up would be other business. Are there any recommendations for future committee meetings? Anybody? Anything? Vote of confidence for TNL department? Okay. Alrighty. So our next meeting will be held on January 8th, 2019 in this room at 6 p.m. Other than that, meeting adjourned.